terrible mistake, sir. Please, oh, believe me, I would never do anything to offend a man of your size.
Howdy friends, just quickly before I get into the video, I wanted to take a quick second to sort of bring up that the holiday season is quickly approaching, and some of you might be wondering what to get for friends, family, loved ones, and maybe even get yourself a gift, as I get myself a Christmas gift every year. And well, I wanted to take this quick second to mention the upcoming release in the world of Magic the Gathering with Foundations, and it's more so away from the themed vibes of Dustmourn, like that was a horror setting, and sort of goes back to its foundations with classic cards that's been a bit refreshed for new players. Now, there are a couple of ways to start with the beginner box, which has everything you need to pick up and play with guided decks, reference books, playmats, and bonus packs to open. With this pack, all you need is a friend to sit down, play, and that's really it. There's also the Starter Collection box, which has everything you need to build your own Magic deck, and this box has over 350 cards in the box. You'll have everything you need to create either your first deck or your 50th deck, and if, like me, you've remade your Vampire Commander deck 4 times, this box helps you sort of get things going because it's got some recommendations and some tutorials as well. On top of this too, you'll also have the standard bundle box that has those 9 boosters inside of it. There is a pre-release box as well as the standard boosters and collector boosters as well. Now, Magic the Gathering Foundations releases on the 15th of November, and if you're looking for something to play that doesn't include a television, a tablet, or sort of getting people away from the screens, then I highly recommend taking a look at Magic the Gathering Foundations set. It's honestly a great way to sit down with some mates or some friends and family and just have a good laugh and sort of do something that isn't television related. Now, speaking of television related, let's get into the video. 10 years after the release of Dragon Age Inquisition, EA and Bioware have released Dragon Age the Veilguard, the latest release in their fantasy RPG series, a series that many people love. And while there have been plenty of videos and reviews as to whether you should play Veilguard or not, I wanted to take a look at Veilguard from a different point of view or for a different reason, and to ask the question, is it a noob-friendly game?
Game's over, Grandpa.
I got down on the floor for this.
Now, what I mean by this is, if you're looking for something to play and you've seen heaps of videos, articles, social media posts around Dragon Age, but you've never played or read or overly really touched a Dragon Age game before, can you play and understand Veilguard? Is it easy to understand the story, the lore, and history from the previous games? Are the factions and gameplay as well? Like, what is it like to play Veilguard from a new player's perspective? Now, just as a preface, I have played some Dragon Age games before, but I've only played and finished Dragon Age 2 when I was a kid, when it first released, and all I remember was that I was playing as a mage. My character looked like the box art version of Hawk, and I was determined to get that style of box art dragon mage armor, but I can't remember the story, the ending, nothing really. Now, I did play the first game, I didn't get very far. I played Dragon Age Inquisition, well, I tried to play Dragon Age Inquisition a couple times and it overly just didn't gel with me. Oh, the only other thing I can recall as well was the dwarven character of Varric is basically this game's version of Garrus from Mass Effect, in that he appears in all games and is a rad character.
But what does that have to do with anything?
No, he's got a point.
So, having not played much of Inquisition, how is Veilguard, a Dragon Age game that is legit a sequel to Inquisition? Well, the game starts off with a previous companion from Inquisition, Solus, wanting to bring down the Veil, which is this wall that separates the spirit world from the physical world. However, by doing this, it will cause some casualties, so another returning companion, Varric, recruits the new playable character, Rook.
Wake up, bitch! You're my new best friend!
Really? What?
The opening, say 40 minutes or so of the game, introduces you to your character, or to your version of Rook, to Varric, to the world of Thedas that Dragon Age is set in, and gives us some opening plot or story to stop 2 elven gods who break out of their prison, so to speak. From here, and just like in nearly any Bioware game, we set out to recruit a team of like-minded adventurers to stop these elven gods, to save the world of Thedas, and well, that is the main crux or story of the game, if you will.
Pretty standard, really.
Now, I've been playing Dragon Age Veilguard for about a week or so now, thanks to EA Games, and I've played about 25 hours already, and I've made 5 characters in total for this video, and for a few reasons. But Dragon Age Veilguard gets some things right and some things wrong, but I'm not doing a list like I've done with my Suicide Squad vs Gotham Knights or Helldivers vs Space Marine 2 videos, no. Instead though, I'm asking the question, is Veilguard noob friendly? For someone to go on Steam or to their nearest shop and purchase a copy, to pick up and play the game with little to no reference of previous entries in the universe, and from a gameplay perspective, yeah, Veilguard is actually pretty damn fun to play from its combat perspective.
That's good.
Now, as I mentioned, I made 5 characters and played the first hour or 2 of each class being a mage, a rogue, and a warrior to get a vibe for the gameplay style that I wanted to go with. And now, my mates Dantix and Nauza were recommending that I go with the rogue or warrior, and there is a reason for this too, but I couldn't help myself and locked in as a mage. Now, just before the story starts, you pick your class out of the 3 standard classes and choose a race from the elves, the humans, the dwarfs, which, yeah, they're cool, but they're not as cool as, like, the Lord of the Rings dwarfs, which is what I sort of picture in my head, and the Qunari. Qunari? That's what I'm going with. But I just sort of reference them as the Hellboy people.
What you looking at, John?
But you make a character and the options are somewhat extensive when it comes to actually creating the character, and thankfully too, if you do pick a hairstyle that you end up hating, you can change the cosmetic items after you've made your character, which I actually kinda liked. But anyways, back to the noob-friendly gameplay. It might not look like much, but the gameplay for Veilguard is actually pretty damn entertaining and engaging. It's kind of weird though, because I've seen my mates play this game, they do a load of videos on Dragon Age Veilguard, and the combat from a simple viewing perspective, it does look kinda flat, but actually, in hand, it's pretty fun. I would say it's sort of like the sport cricket. It is boring to watch, but if you're playing it, you might have a different view on it.
Let's see that in an instant replay.
In Geelong, pretty cold night, so that definitely wouldn't have helped either.
Now, I gave a crack to the warrior, which is the sort of generic tanky class. You go in, you deal damage, you get aggression from enemies, while your companions also deal damage from a distance. And they've got an option to use a single-handed weapon and a shield, or they can use a two-handed giant weapon like a big hammer or big axe, and they're overall pretty fun. The class's ranged attack is basically, well, Captain America's shield in that you throw a magical shield, but being a class where you want to rush in and just slap enemies around and not have to think about mana or dealing damage with sort of elemental based attacks, the warrior is just the way to go. The rogue though is get in, deal damage, get the hell out of there before you get hit, or you parry those attacks if possible, a little bit like say Legolas from Lord of the Rings in that you have 2 smaller swords and you've got a ranged weapon with a bow and arrow, and the arrows do restore over time. But I played this class the least, only sort of getting past that opening 40-minute or so prologue of the game. But the mage is my preferred class, and it generally is when it comes to playing RPGs. The mage obviously isn't going to do great close combat damage, but it has access to a mage's staff, which is used to shoot magic from, and honestly, I can't think of another RPG that the mage and staff combo is so impressive. It makes playing as a staff-wielding mage look cool. Like, just look at how cool it is being a mage. But they've also got access to sort of like a short sword, long dagger, if you will, and a offhand magical style ability, which gives you that option to go in close if you want to. Sort of, I don't know, like an assassin-y vampire vibe that I kind of got to it, but the mage, very squishy. If you get hit in combat, you'll take a fair amount of damage, and it is easy to get surrounded or pummeled into a game over screen, so you do kind of need to be careful. But their dodge ability works pretty cool, as it's this sort of short range little teleport, which, I don't know dude, I just really enjoyed it. But the mage's shield as well is also a giant bubble that goes around them. It's just, it sort of feels like they put more effort, or the mage class just sort of feels more impressive visually than just the tank going in with a shield. But, combat, it's pretty fun in your hands, and you do have that standard leveling up system where you unlock new abilities, and new perks and buffs and ultimate moves, and then you can go into your specializations for each class. And the cool thing too is, if you start to regret the choices that you made in your skill tree, you can reset your skills at any time for free to just try other things out.
Pretty good. Pretty dang good, lads! Yeah!
But companions. It wouldn't overly be a Bioware RPG without companions, and the choices for characters or companions and their abilities, I will say, is very hit and miss. Now, firstly, my mates Norza and Dantix were urging me to go with warrior or rogue for my first character because, well, you start the game with a mage companion and a rogue companion, and you don't unlock a warrior until about maybe 5-6 hours into the story, if not more.
That doesn't sound right, but I don't know enough about stars to dispute it.
No, it's right.
So any combat or boss moments in the game, you're playing without a tank, and it can get a bit tricky. Now, the first character you get is Harding, a returning character from Inquisition, apparently, and they are a dwarven scout. Then you get Nev, the Frost Mage, and then you get Bolara, another mage, and then you get Lucanus, another rogue, before you then get your first warrior. So it is a bit shit that if you pick mage as your class, you're playing without a tank for quite some time.
Ooh! Oh! Ow! That's it!
But you don't get to play or control your companions here in Veilguard, but like in Mass Effect, you can give commands to your companions like attack this target, use your special or ultimate attacks, or heal me. And the entertaining yet chaotic gameplay of facing off against a dragon or a decent sort of horde of enemies, then to give your commands to your companions, it sort of pauses the game, letting you just sort of have a bit of a breather. It feels fluid, and I sort of thought it actually kind of works. So the combat is good. What else? Well, as a small side note, graphically, I think Dragon Age is a damn pretty game. It kind of has that realism meets a bit of that poppy Fortnite stylings, but one of my personal things that I look for when I play one of these games is if I wear a cape or a cloak or a robe, I don't want it sticking to my character model, and it doesn't, and the hair physics and the clothing physics I think are pretty cool. I just want to take a quick second to mention that out. But we're talking about whether Dragon Age the Veilguard is noob friendly, and when it comes to the story, I don't think it's noob friendly at all. Now, yeah, you can go on YouTube, you can watch videos giving you heaps of recaps about what happened in Dragon Age Inquisition and prepare yourself for Veilguard, so that's an option there. But the story starts off pretty straightforward in a way, kinda. Like, you're stopping an elf called Solus, a returning character from Inquisition, as well as Varric, another returning character. But then the story just sort of had my brain implode. Like, we have to stop some evil elvish gods. Sure, makes sense. But then we're introduced to factions, enemies, places, key characters from previous games make an appearance, and I had no idea who the hell they were.
Who the fuck is this guy? Hey, who the fuck are you? Huh?
Basically, The Veilguard is a flat sequel to Inquisition, and it kinda feels weird that we make a new character Rook to follow on what is seemingly a story that should be in the same shoes as the Inquisitor from the first game. It'd be like, say, playing Mass Effect 2, but instead of playing as Commander Shepard, we're playing as Ryder from Andromeda, but we're following Shepard's story.
Oh, dear God, no!
But the main story, events that take place, returning characters, if, like me, you played a little bit of Inquisition, or you didn't play it at all, it's pretty confusing. As well as we're playing as a new character, the game should have treated this like we're new to the universe. Have characters, places, events all explained to us, because Rook is a new character, so the story should treat us in that way too.
My goodness, what an idea.
Why didn't I think of that?
The way I explained my experience of Veilguard's story to a few mates is, imagine you are watching Return of the King. It's a fantastic movie, don't get me wrong. But imagine watching that movie, but you've not seen The Two Towers or The Fellowship of the Ring. You'll be completely confused with what the One Ring is, why is Christopher Lee's house flooded, and why don't they use these giant eagles to fly to the volcano? It's all pretty damn confusing.
Hey, come on, I haven't seen it yet. It doesn't have anything to do with the plot. Still, I like to go in fresh.
And that's what it was like with sort of playing Veilguard. Now, sure, you can say the same thing with games like, say, Skyrim, for example. It is an RPG with classes and skills and such, similar to Dragon Age, and it is also set in a pre-existing, well-developed world with heaps of lore, events, history, and more. But Skyrim is an open-world game where you can do what you want with your character. You do not have to follow the main story in Skyrim. You can be a farmer, a thief, an assassin, where Dragon Age isn't an open world but sort of a sub-open sandbox area with a linear story, and not taking the time to properly introduce key characters, events, and giving us history of a world in an easy to digest format for new players, I think actually kinda hurts it. But outside of the main story, there are side missions with companions that you'll make along the way, and these are 50-50. Some characters are super interesting and had me completely engaged with their personal struggles, their character introduction, and their own story subplots. Other characters, though, were not for me.
Who is it?
For example, the warrior of Davrin is a Grey Warden who is now tasked with nurturing a griffin pup, if you will, and struggles in raising and parenting something that he's unfamiliar with as a person, and it's fantastic. His opening character introduction and personal storyline honestly had me disregard the world-ending story of Elvish gods, and I just wanted to focus on his story. The Necromancer Emmerich. Dude, when we are told that there is a Necromancer to recruit, you kind of immediately think of a character or personality that matches resurrecting the dead. Instead, you've got a dude that looks like Vincent Price, who's incredibly charming, with an undead assistant, Manfred, and it's something that just flat worked for this character.
Oh, he's so charming.
And while I mentioned that I was playing as a mage and struggling to have no tanks during combat, once I unlocked Emmerich, I was immediately using Davrin for tanking and Emmerich for DPS alongside myself, because these characters left an impression on me. The opening introduction, their voice actors, the writing, it all just kind of worked, at least for me, and while these characters might not work for you, and that's completely fine, but I never overly had to think of what companions to take with me on a quest. So unless I was locked into using, say, Tash the Dragon Hunter, or Lucanus the Possessed Mage Killer, then Emmerich and Davrin were always locked in with me. However, there was a companion that sort of had me change my opinion of them. There was a opening character that, at first, I'll be honest, I wasn't a fan of, with Nev. The character just overly didn't work for me, but later in the story, without going into spoilers, I picked an option that, well, Nev didn't agree with, and I found myself going, shit, did I make the wrong choice maybe? And I sort of wanted to get back into her good books from there on out. The way I look at companions though, and sorry if I keep going back to Mass Effect, but Garrus, Jack, Miranda, Rex, they all left an impression as a companion in that series, and they've sort of left a bit of a brand on me, in that I haven't played Mass Effect in years, but if I see a picture of Garrus at, say, pub trivia or something like that, I immediately know who that is. The same goes with Jack, Miranda, shit, even characters like Boozer in Days Gone, Ram Kota in The Force Unleashed, Johnny Silverhands, shit, even Dogmeat, a damn German Shepherd in Fallout 4, makes more of an impression than some of the companions here in Dragon Age the Veilguard. Some of the dialogue, the writing, the characters here, honestly, it just started going over my head with exposition for exposition's sake. Some would just start talking about events that sounded like someone was trying to explain a damn tax form, and I found myself skipping it in order to get back to the actual game, because the combat, the skill tree, the hunting for loot is pretty entertaining, and I didn't care about some of my companions or the main storyline in some aspects.
But no, not I. I is singular, but it isn't. We either. We is multiple, but also separate.
Shut the fuck up!
But if you're new to the Dragon Age series, can you play Veilguard? Well, sure you can. No one's gonna stop you at a counter saying you must play Inquisition in order to play this, but poorly written jokes aside, you can get the gist of what's going on with the core crux of the story, but there are some teething issues when it comes to understanding factions, locations, events from previous games, but there is a menu that you can go in and read all about this, but honestly, I didn't really touch it. I just wanted to keep sort of fighting things. The gameplay though is pretty damn fun, and if you do end up checking Veilguard out, I highly recommend making a few alternative characters. Make a mage, make a warrior, make a rogue, have a play around to see what gameplay style suits you. The combat is engaging, and I found myself spending a fair amount of time just doing side quests that I was interested in, and kind of just pushing aside the main story and other companions asking for me to help them. Dragon Age the Veilguard is available now, and whether you're wondering what the hell the Blight is, or you're more interested in teaching a griffin pup to find its own food, always remember to play with each other and play with yourself.